Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by and welcome to the webinar, Small Business Lending Funding During COVID-19. My name is Gabriela Zambrano and I'm the director of the Houston MBDA Business Center. During today's webinar, attendees will be in a listen-only mode. There will be a Q&A session at the end of today's call. My colleague, Mark Craig, is going to monitor the Q&As. If you have any questions during the presentation, you may submit it online by entering in the Q&A panel. As a reminder, this presentation is being recorded. This webinar is being presented by the NAACP Houston Branch Economic Development Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Roger Harris.
Well, good morning, folks, and thank you, Deidre, for the applause. So the NAACP obviously has been a staying force in the country for many years, and we here at the Houston branch want to ensure that individuals have access to capital. The Economic Development Committee is there for you to help understand how to navigate certain things, how to get access to certain folks in the contracting world and also for lending. But obviously we do other things as well, as our criminal justice committee, getting out the vote, political action, housing. So we do a number of activities to help fight social and racial injustice. And so today, obviously, just for the last bit, we are located at 2002 Wheeler Street, right next to 288. I had a slide that had my information on it, but I didn't get it to the editing to the director in time. So maybe before the end of the day, I'll be able to get it. You'll be able to contact me if you'd like some more information about the NAACP, the Economic Development Committee, and all the other many things we do good here in Houston. Certainly want to thank Houston MBDA Business Center. They are very near and dear to me since I used to work for MBDA and used to work for Mr. Marlon Mitchell many years ago when I started. And I was a lot shorter. I've grown since then. And so I didn't want to talk too much. I certainly wanted this to be more about you learning how to get access to the capital with Houston Business Development. And I think Marlon's going to be able to share a lot of things with you today on how you can get access to capital. And certainly if it doesn't work with with Houston Business Development Inc., I'm sure Gabriella is going to come back online and discuss with you how you can engage with MBDA and how they can help you with access to contracts and access to capital. So we've got three great partners online. And having said that, I'm going to give it back to Gabriella, who's going to talk about MBDA, and then we'll roll back into our featured speaker, Mr. Marlon Mitchell and his team, to talk about how you can get infusion of capital in your business. Obviously, today's economy is challenging. The COVID-19 has certainly been challenging for all of us, and we can see if you turn the TV on, obviously the cases in Houston and Harris County are rising. So, Gabriella, did you have some things that you wanted to mention about the Houston MBDA Business Center?
Of course, the Houston MBDA Business Center is the only federal program created to help minority-owned business. We are in Houston, operated by the Houston Community College. We are one of the 40 centers around the United States, and we help minority-owned business either to get access to capital, business consulting, and certification. We'll have Peter Sutton, she's one of our business advisor, and Matt Craig, our other business advisor. And if you guys have any questions or anything regarding this, you're more than welcome to send us an email at mbda@hecs.edu. And Roger, don't worry about it. After the end of this presentation, we can send your PowerPoint to everyone who registered for this event. They'll be getting your PowerPoint, today's HBDi PowerPoint, And any video recording that we're doing, probably tomorrow. See, that's gonna take like 24 hours. But I wanna thank you, Roger and Marlene, for being part of this initiative. I always love to collaborate. As you know, Roger, whenever I need help, I always reach out to you as you were the previous director. And Marlene, you know, we've always wanted to do more events with you because we believe education is the only way to access information to minority-owned business, and access to capital is one of the things that we're always fighting to help our small business owners. So thank you so much. And without further ado, Marlon, please go ahead.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining the call. I want to extend a warm welcome to you. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to participate in this webinar. I also want to thank NAACP and MBDA for inviting us to participate. I think these are some very challenging times for small business community, particularly the minority small business community. I don't have to tell you all, as business owners and as aspiring entrepreneurs, you know that this is unlike any time that we've ever experienced, unprecedented prevailing economic conditions. And so we're really happy to be here today to tell you about a new program that we launched just shortly after the start of the pandemic to be able to assist micro enterprises, the most vulnerable businesses. But before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit more about the background of HBDi. If you could go to the next slide, please. So we were established, ironically, during a time of distress. Back in 1986, Houston was in an economic recession. And again, minority businesses and businesses operating in underserved communities couldn't access or readily access capital from conventional sources. So the Houston Business Development Inc., back then we were known as the City of Houston Small Business Development Corporation, was established. And it was established primarily to help businesses operating in those low-income census tracts that are comprised of minorities, people of color. And we started making loans at $100,000, and since then it's grown. We can make loans up to $5.5 million. And I'll get into just a little bit of the product mix that we have. But our primary objective is to stimulate economic growth and to revitalize communities, to combat community deterioration. And we do that by providing assistance, mainly access to capital, to small businesses and aspiring entrepreneurs. And then we couple that with management and technical assistance services as well. Our goal is to build healthy, vibrant, and prosperous communities throughout the city of Houston, the metro area, and surrounding counties. We are a CDFI, a Community Development Financial Institution, which means we're certified by the U.S. Treasury to make loans and products available in underserved communities that typically you won't be able to find from a private sector lending institution. The difference between HBDi and a bank is that we're not regulated by the OCC or the Federal Reserve or the Federal Deposit Insurance Company. We can be much more flexible in terms of how we lend, how we structure products, and our goal is a double bottom line goal. It's not just to make profit, but it's to sustain our operations and to deploy capital back into those communities that have been left out of the mainstream of economic prosperity. So our mission is more of a social objective and goal as opposed to just being profit motivated. We are a 501c3 nonprofit tax exempt organization. You can go to the next slide, please. So we have several products that range loan sizes anywhere from $600 up to as much as $5.5 million. And I won't go through all of these slides in detail because I do want to spend the majority of the time answering any questions that you all might have on the Microenterprise Stabilization Fund. But I do want you to know that we can make loans available for any variety of needs. If you have working capital needs, if you need funding for equipment, if you're wanting to start up a business, If you are a business owner and you have impaired credit, maybe your credit score is 450 or 500. We even have a product for you, which is unheard of. If you go to a bank with a score of 400, 500, even 600, they're likely to tell you that, I'm sorry, we can't help you. But we have a product called a credit builder loan that falls under our micro loans, where we can work with you to improve your credit. So we take a small dollar loan, $600, $1,000, to help you create a credit profile, and we manage that, or we couple that with management assistance. Uh-oh, my lights went out here. I've got a sensor on. I'm gonna have to move around a little bit to make sure that that doesn't happen again. But we make loans available where typically there's a gap in the marketplace. So one of the number one reasons we find that businesses are turned down from banks is because they have impaired credit. So we came up with the credit builder. We also saw that a lot of times businesses weren't able to access small dollar loans, $10,000, $15,000, $25,000 in a short period of time for working capital needs. So we developed a fast track loan. We saw that contractors were having difficulty finding mobility capital or to get started on a project. So we created a working capital line of credit that will lend up to $75,000. You can go to the next slide. We also have what we call our SBA 504 product, which is for owner-occupied real estate. We can lend up to $5.5 million anywhere in the state of Texas for real estate, commercial real estate. The caveat is that you have to own 51% of the business, and the business has to operate in 51% of that facility. But it's a great product that provides 90% financing. You as the principal, you come up with 10%. And then it's a tri-party relationship between a commercial lending institution through an affiliate of ours called Lone Star State Capital Corporation, and then also through the principal putting in their 10%. Rates are less than 3% in today's market. So you can't beat that anywhere. It's a great product, underutilized in my opinion, but it's still a great product. So that gives you an idea. Anything from $600 up to $5.5 million, we can actually provide assistance to you. So now let's go to the next slide. What I wanted to talk about today is the Microenterprise Stabilization Fund. We've already talked about the pandemic and how it's had such a devastating impact on all of us, and in particular small business owners. When the federal government rolled out the CARES Act funding for the PPP and the EIDL program, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, regrettably, a lot of smaller businesses were not able to access that capital. We later learned that some of the more the larger businesses, publicly traded companies, were accessing that capital at the expense of perhaps who it was even identified for or intended to help. And so what we wanted to do is to try to come up with something. It's not a grant, but a loan program that has some flexibility that would be able to help businesses during this season. So we developed the Microenterprise Stabilization Fund to help the most vulnerable businesses, those businesses that have sales size less than $500,000. And we bumped that over the ensuing months to up to $1 million that someone could actually have sales size. And that won't be reflected in the slides, but I just wanted to make that known. We couldn't do this without our partners. I've always said that collaborations, just as Gabrielle said earlier, is the way to go. So if we can partner with MBDA and with NAACP to provide information and knowledge, then we want to do that. Likewise, we want to partner with the private sector lending institutions. So what they can't do, we potentially can do. If we work together, then we can provide resources to the communities that have not had access. So kudos to Wells Fargo Bank, JP Morgan Chase, Union Bank, Capital One, and Pro America, all of whom have supported us generously to be able to launch this program. Next slide, please. So the Microenterprise Stabilization Fund actually provides loans up to $10,000. I say up to $10,000 because what we'll do is look at what the request is, and then we will score based upon several weighted metrics to determine how much you're actually eligible to borrow. The program is fixed rate of interest offers a fixed rate of interest at 3% over the life of the loan. The first 6 months are deferred. The payments of interest and principal are deferred over the first 6 months. That was done so that we can get through this pandemic. Hopefully we will find that in 6 months, things maybe will get back to normal. I know right now it doesn't look that way. We're seeing a surge in the numbers of infections, but prayerfully we'll see this thing turn around soon enough. And after 6 months, that's when you would then begin to make your payments of principal and interest. The good thing is that we've amortized this over a 10-year period of time. So it keeps the monthly payments nominal. You would probably, if you were to borrow $10,000, you'd have payments less than $100 once your payments start at that 3-year maturity. Good news is that we will look at each loan on a case-by-case basis to see where you are and then determine how we need to structure those ongoing payments. You can pay the loan off at maturity, or you can convert it to a 4-year term with an adjusted interest rate. Another good thing is our interest rates are always very flexible. They're always fixed over the life of the loan, and then we have more flexibility than most conventional lenders in terms of how we require those payments over the term of the loan. So typically a bank would give you 30 years or so, maybe 20, 25 years on real estate. We can do the same thing. On working capital, a bank would typically give you a 1-year facility. We can do it over 5 years. So we can be a lot more flexible with our rate and term, and therefore this makes this, as well as other HBDi products, very attractive. There are no collateral requirements. There are no prepayment penalties with this product. Any principal that owns 20% or more of the company will be expected to personally guarantee the debt. Next slide, please. So businesses that are eligible to participate are those that have sales of less than $1 million. This says 500,000, but $1 million, that still makes this a program that's hitting the target. It's helping those businesses that heretofore have not been able to get any assistance. Even if you have gotten assistance through the PPP or the EIDL or the Main Street program, we still will work with you. But it is targeted for those businesses that are on the smaller end of the spectrum, $1 million in sales or less. For-profit corporations, businesses that are located in low to moderate income communities. When you submit your application, we'll pull your zip code to determine whether or not you are in a low income census tract. Again, our focus is to try to help those businesses that have not had assistance from any of the other programs that are out there. And so oftentimes we find that businesses that are in low-income census tracts or under-resourced communities don't have the same access. So we want to make sure that we target those communities. Now, if you're not in a community, we're going to look at the impact that your business would have in terms of job creation. And that's another measurement that we would look at in addition to your being located in a low-income area. The business has to be in good standing with all local, state, and federal obligations. And then lastly, we're going to want to determine that your business is on sound footing. This is for ongoing businesses. We'll have to substantiate that. And then we also want to see that prior to the pandemic, that your business was operating successfully. And so we'll ask you to provide us with documentation that we can confirm that 6 months prior to the pandemic that your business was on good footing. Next slide, please. Ineligible businesses, and this is typical of all HBDi products. If you're a sexually oriented business or a liquor-oriented business, defined as one that derives over 51% of its revenue from alcoholic beverage sales, we won't be able to assist you. And so we don't make loans to bars or liquor stores. Needless to say, strip clubs, all of those would be excluded. No speculative real estate or residential housing, no religious organizations, churches, mosques, and then no gambling-related establishments would be eligible to apply. Next slide. So the idea is to help people through this pandemic by giving you access to capital that can be used to cover your payroll costs, your rent, your mortgage, utilities, operating expenses, accounts payables that you might have if you need to purchase inventory. Maybe you need to purchase sanitation equipment, or maybe you're gearing up for this new normal that we're experiencing where you need to buy an outside awning or something. Funds can be used for each of those purposes under this program. Again, our hope is to be able to help you as entrepreneurs to sustain yourselves during this time of pandemic. Next slide. So to apply to the program, we're going to ask you to provide a one-page application, which we would make available. It's in a fillable PDF. We intentionally made this as simple as possible. You submit that package along with your 2019 tax return if it hasn't been filed. Give us your 2018 tax return and a copy of your extension for 2019 if you filed that. We would also ask you for the last 3 months of your bank statements prior to the start of the pandemic or prior to February 15th of 2020. Then we would also ask you to submit a copy of your driver's license, and that's it. Those are the documents that we would need. Next slide, please. Once we get that information, we would then begin processing the application. You can see here that the processing time, we've tried to truncate that as best possible. We've had applications that have been processed within a few days. This suggests that we could do it within 6 to 9 days. The first couple of days, we're going to review the application and all of the supporting documentation that you submitted. If there are questions and we have to go back and get confirmation of certain items, that could delay the process slightly. Once we get a complete application and all the supporting documents, we'll score that application based upon weighted metrics. We'll approve it or decline it. If it's approved, then we determine what the amount is, and then we notify you by email that the request has been approved for that dollar amount. We then would prepare a promissory note, which also includes guarantee agreement. Request wiring instructions from you along with the voided check, and then we would wire the loan proceeds into your account. Again, the idea is to put the money in your hands as quickly as possible so that you can get on with keeping your business afloat and taking care of the necessities of that particular business operation. Next slide, please. In a nutshell, our goal is to try to help small businesses through this season. It's a very challenging time, and I know that there are other resources that are available. Hopefully, this will be another resource that you can couple with those in order to help sustain you during this COVID-19 pandemic. With that, I'll open it up for questions. I do want to suggest to you, though, that we have on the webinar joining me is our Senior Lending Officer, Melissa Brito, who will also field some of the questions that you all might have. And then Raquel Solis, who really runs the program, our lending assistant. She's also on the webinar as well. With that, Gabrielle, I'll turn it back over.
So, Marlon, I'm going to ask a question. Typically, when you are working with individuals, trying to get them to the finish line, what are some of the challenges that you see in terms of getting folks qualified or getting them approved for the loan? What do you think some of the things are? I mean, I could probably think of some, but what are some of the things that happen that just don't get people to the finish line?
Well, I say that one of the challenges that we have within our targeted communities would be credit scores. So oftentimes people are ill prepared. And I say that reluctantly, but it's true. If you're ready to expand your business, then you need to make sure that you've sort of done your homework and check all the boxes. And one of the key factors in lending, many of you are familiar with the 5 C's of credit. One of the most crucial, essential C's would be credit, which is an indication of your capacity to repay. So with this program, as with any program, we typically will pull credit reports and we see that in many instances, the credit scores are very low. With this program, we're looking at a minimum credit score of 600. So we still see instances where people have credit scores that are much less than that. Now, I say that that's a minimum, but you notice I didn't mention credit scores on there because we don't want that to exclude anyone. We're looking at several metrics. If we can get comfortable with most of the metrics, even though the credit may be impaired, we'll still try to work with it. We have a credit builder program where we couple folks with credit management and counseling training so that we can help improve the credit. But that is across the board, not just for this program, but that's probably one of the #1 reasons that banks, as well as other alternative lenders, turn down loan requests because of impaired credit. This program has been working smoothly. We launched it maybe in late March, early April. Melissa's helped me if that's right. And we've already deployed or approved just shy of $1 million in loans. And we're excited about being able to completely exhaust our resources so that we can go back to our lending partners and tell them how successful the program was so that we can continue getting more support as well. But Roger, back to your question, I think credit is one of the main issues. And then just making sure that you follow the instructions and provide the documentation that's required. That's oftentimes another impediment or something that slows the process down. When you are looking for financial statements or tax return or bank statements, given again in this program, we tried to expedite it, keep the documentation request very simple, but oftentimes you still have the back and forth in terms of making sure you're getting the right documentation.
Okay, we have our first question. Are the terms discussed today the same for a startup that's pivoting as a result of COVID-19? No, you are muted. There we go.
Okay, in all of our lending products, we're going to look at the bottom line. Is there a wherewithal for this business to operate successfully and to take on this level of debt and to be able to service that debt? Typically, you're going to look at cash flow to determine that. With the startup business, we don't have a historical perspective. We don't have any financial statements, income statements, balance sheets, projections to base it upon historically. So typically, if we're going to work with a startup business, There are three primary responsibilities of aspiring entrepreneurs: to have a detailed, comprehensive business plan that they prepare. In that plan, one of the most important aspects of it would be the financial projections. 3 years of projections, with the first 2 years being month by month. And then the underlying assumptions to those projections need to be pretty clear. Oftentimes we'll get business plans where someone may have gone off the internet and pulled a template and just answered the questions to that template, maybe a paragraph or two of information, and then they submit that as their business plan. But that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for a well thought out, very comprehensive plan that will serve as your your Bible, if you will. It's what you use in order to get you through this early development stage to the stage of being a successful operating business. So it's your guide, and we want to be able to make sure that you understand that, and you certainly have a grasp on the financial projections and the performance that would indicate to us that this could be a successful business. Secondly, we want to see that you have some relevant experience in the industry. If you're opening up a restaurant, then we'd like to see that you've actually managed the restaurant or you've owned the restaurant previously. If you have some relevant experience in that industry, and if not you, someone who's a part owner in that business or someone who's in a very essential position or role in the company, you can have that relevant experience. And then lastly, for a startup business, we're going to ask that you have an investment. We don't do 100% financing. We want to see that you've got skin in the game, that you have an equity injection in the company. So anywhere from 10% to 33% equity would be the required equity injection that we would want to see you bring to the table. That can be in the form of cash, it could be an equipment that you have, maybe it's real estate that you own. But for us to work with startup businesses, those are the three primary things that we would need. And again, once we get that business plan, we're going to then drill down to make sure that there is, on a projected basis, enough cash flow to service the debt. We're going to make sure that there's sufficient collateral as a secondary repayment source. We look at startup business the same way we would an existing business. It's just that we have to base it on projections as opposed to historical information.
Okay, we have a question on chat. The participant says, first, I would like to say thank you for your time. You've mentioned some of the loan would be forgivable. May you please tell me what loan qualifies for that option? For instance, paying rent and using funds for playing catch up pretty much.
Okay, yeah. I may have misspoke if I said or indicated or led you to believe that this is a forgivable loan. It's not. There is a program that offers forgivable loans that's offered under the CARES Act called the PPP, or the Payroll Protection Program, that's offered through commercial lending institutions and some CDFIs. We don't offer that product. The Stabilization Fund, or the Microenterprise Stabilization Fund, is offering loans that have a longer repayment period to sort of make it like it's patient capital, so it's amortized over 10 years with a low interest rate, fixed rate at 3%. You have 6 months of time that you don't make any payments. And maybe that's where the confusion came about. We will defer payments for a period of 6 months. The intent being that hopefully will get us through this pandemic and the depressed economic conditions that we're currently in. Hopefully we'll see the economy coming back, businesses beginning to get back to full operation. But then your payments would begin, and you would have normal payments based upon that 10-year amortization and that 3% interest rate. But the loans under this program are not forgivable. We are flexible, and we will continue to work with you as long as this pandemic exists. We're going to continue to work with businesses by providing management and technical assistance, structuring, restructuring as needed. But this is a loan program, and it's not a grant for a forgivable loan.
So Marlon, thanks for that. So let me ask you this. Obviously, you talked about this loan stabilization program. Obviously, there are some other loan programs that you offer, which you talked about before. And let's just say I, as a business owner, looked at what you have to offer, and maybe I'm not in there. Are you able to work with other organizations? Are there some other loan programs? Anything else? Are you able to, or maybe I think you mentioned that maybe I'm not ready yet for the loan, and maybe you can help folks along. So we certainly want to there's a lot of people on the call that are probably wondering that, hey, this $10,000 may be a good thing. I may not qualify, but can you serve as a cheerleader or a traffic cop and say, hey, look, you applied for us, but don't think it's going to really work here. Are you able to maybe assist people and helping them navigate the waters, so to speak?
Sure. So in the first round of the CARES Act, nearly $350 billion was exhausted in a period of like 2 weeks. The vast majority of that money went to large institutions. You all have heard the stories of Luby's, Shake Shack, Ruth Chris Steakhouse, the LA Lakers, and on and on and on. Businesses that we would probably think don't need that assistance actually got assistance. Meanwhile, folks that are doing $500,000 in sales or operating a small local restaurant were not able to get in line because they didn't have the documentation readily available, or they didn't have the established relationships with banks. And so they just weren't able to get in line. So that second round, about 310 million that they made, 310 billion that they made available, a portion of that was carved out for CDFIs and community banks. So I would strongly encourage you, we're not a PPP lender, but there are PPP lenders that offer those forgivable loans. The downside is, I believe, I may be speaking a bit after the fact, that program, unless they've extended it, applications had to have been submitted on yesterday.
Yeah, and I believe that I did hear something that they may be extending it, but I believe you're right.
I would think because of where we are in this country with the pandemic, rather than seeing our curve flatten, we're seeing the trajectory go upward, that they're going to have to continue to battle this and to provide support. Nobody wants to see the economy shut down. On one hand, many people may look at the actions of Governor Abbott and be upset. On the other hand, people might be pleased because he's trying to do a balancing act. He wants to keep the economy open because we create jobs, keep jobs, retain jobs. But at the same time, we've got to take this thing seriously because folks are dying. So it's a balancing act. And I think that the government is going to continue to try to support small businesses. So even though the first, the PPP program, the first iteration of it has closed as of yesterday, I do believe that they'll have an extension. And so there are other institutions, the community banks like Unity Bank, Allegiance Bank, Cadence Bank, and I don't want to leave others out, but there are several community banks that have been given a portion of that second round of funding. And it's my understanding that all of the funding had not been deployed, even though we reached the deadline on June 30th. So that's a further indication that it's likely to be extended. And then you have CDFIs that can also make funding available. CDFIs, again, being community development financial institutions, who have a mandate to focus on under-resourced communities as well as minority communities. In the state of Texas, we have several CDFIs. There are maybe 4 here in the Houston area. The LIFT Fund, the People Fund, True Fund, Financial Services. So all of those entities, we work closely together in terms of referring folks back and forth. If we can't help somebody, we'll refer them to the LIFT Fund or the People Fund and vice versa. So I would encourage you to take advantage of all resources that are available, conventional lenders as well as alternative lenders like CDFIs. And then you have programs that are being made available at the local level, governmental. The city of Houston should be announcing real soon that they have a program that will offer grants. I'm not sure exactly when they'll make that announcement, but it's forthcoming. Harris County just announced yesterday a $30 million fund that will be rolled out here in the coming weeks to make grants available to small businesses. We'll be able to give you more information on that in the coming weeks. HBDi is actually will be administering that program on behalf of.
Now, Marlon, I feel like what you just said was kind of like breaking news. If we were watching MSNBC or CNN, that would have been, hold on a minute. Now, wait a second. Now, you just kind of went through that real quick. Hold on a minute now, brother. Wait a second. Now, I kind of baited you. I saw it on the agenda yesterday, but so there may be some money available to folks, and hopefully all you participants on the line heard that and said that did I hear correctly? HBDi may be working with the county with a $30 million fund. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I wasn't finished that, Roger. It is breaking news.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. I just had to break in. I felt like I was on. I just need to.
And I certainly appreciate that. It is breaking news. It was on the news channels last night. Commissioner's Court just approved it on yesterday. So the timing is perfect for this webinar to be able to further announce it. It hasn't rolled out yet. It's likely to be in a couple of weeks, but stay tuned. We'll get you more information on it. It's called the Small Business Recovery Fund, and it will make grants available to small businesses, not forgivable loans, but grants that will be up to $25,000. Now, many of you may recall that the county back in March, I believe it was, introduced a program called LEAP, Loan Economic Assistance Program, that provided forgivable loans for small businesses. And so they learned from that experience, and they've actually tweaked that program and come back with what's called the Small Business Recovery Loan. And so we're excited to be chosen as the administrator for that program. And again, we'll be getting more information out. You'll see it in public service announcements as well as through other webinars and then through Facebook and other social media. And the word will get out. You all will have ample opportunity to apply for that program. Unlike some of the other programs that have been made available over a short period of time where you have a window of maybe a day or two to submit your applications, and they're submitted over a first-come, first-served basis. This one will be over a longer period of time. You'll have up to 10 days to submit your application, and the applications will be selected randomly. So we're excited about that program. It's just another vehicle, another tool that can help support businesses during this season. And again, it's targeting towards those smaller businesses, not necessarily the larger businesses that have access to other resources. So I thank you for highlighting that, Roger. It is breaking.
It was subtle, Roger. We have another question. How much is available to lend with the Microenterprise Stabilization Fund?
Well, we started the capitalization of the program with $1.2 million. We probably have available now about $350,000. But I feel very strongly that because the program has so far been successful, it's helping quite a few people. I think that we can safely say that it will continue to be capitalized as we work our way through this pandemic.
So Mark, I think, excuse me, Marlon, Mark, was that question geared towards how much can somebody borrow as much as opposed to what's left in the program? I'm not sure if I understood that question correctly.
So no, it was from one of our partners, and so they were asking what the amount of money in the fund in total.
Okay, in total. Okay, that's fine. Okay. So Marlon, you're saying there's about $300,000 left in the program, but perhaps it may be funded again. You think some folks might step up and put some more money in the kitty?
If we have demand, we're going to meet the demand. As I said, we started the program with internally generated funds as well as some of our banking partners who stepped up to help with this program. I don't think that they're going to abandon it. We're certainly not going to abandon it in this thing. So, yeah, we'll continue to capitalize the program. That should not be a concern on the back end. The concern, as you were alluding to, Roger, is the sizes of the loans that we can make. We've intentionally made these small loans, and we've intentionally targeted the smaller, more vulnerable micro enterprises that typically are that can't get in line, that don't have the ability to get access
Sure.
to other funds.
Yeah, awesome. Mark, do we have any more questions?
Yes. Will there be a replay available of today's webinar? And yes, there will be a replay available. Anyone who registered for today's call will get copies of the PowerPoint, and then when the video is edited and published, we'll distribute that to the participants too. So yes, the answer is yes. I actually have a question for Senor Brito. So Moises, can you unmute?
Yes.
What document typically holds up the show in the lending process?
Well, thank you, Mark. Very good question there. Usually what we see in the back end is when someone is not able to provide their financial statements, which is the #1 document that we will definitely try to make a decision on or evaluate. When you don't have your financial statement, it definitely makes it a lot difficult to process the loan request. So when you know, financial statement or tax return are two very important documents that we definitely try to obtain from that particular applicant that will enable us to make a decision for that particular request.
So Oasis, can you be more specific when you say financial documents? I'm looking at the slide that's in front of us, and it says must have 6 months positive operating history. So I think we want to be clear to the participants when you say statement. So are you looking for a balance sheet, an income statement? So let's be clear on what it is, because normally these documents are what lenders are looking for. So can you drill down just a little bit, not long, but just a little bit what you mean by those financial statements? Thank you so much.
Yes, Roger. So we are definitely a profit and loss statement and a balance sheet available as of the year end 2019, or your tax return. Some individuals may have a Schedule C profit and loss statement that also we can use to make an assessment on that particular request.
So Moises, I'm sorry. So are you saying that, and you kind of, at least on my end, you broke up just a little bit. So an income statement or a balance sheet, and are you looking for tax returns, or one or the other? So
one or the other. If you don't have the tax return, we will use your profit and loss statement, income statement, or balance sheet as well for the 2019 tax year.
Okay, great, thank you.
We have another question that I don't know the answer to, and I've worked for MBDA for going on 10 years. Hello, could you please share any helpful website information in which to apply for grants for small businesses?
Well, Mark, I can answer that question. Over the period of time that I've been involved in, Gabriella, I'll defer to you first and see what you have for an answer, and then I'll chime back in. How's that?
Of course, throw me into it. Unfortunately, the only place that you can apply for a federal grant, if you go grants online, which is grants.gov, and that's where they have different grants available for different opportunities that the federal grant wants to do. For example, MBDA is a federal grant, so Houston Community College actually applied for that grant. As far as I know, grants available, we don't have one. I know SBA, Harris County provided a grant, but I don't believe there is one website. I know that the City of Houston has a couple of websites during the Office of Business Opportunity where you can go apply, for example, Facebook Lift Fund. I know within the Houston Community College, we have what is called the Entrepreneur Initiative. And also they have there a different websites where you can go. As you can see, there's a plethora of information out there in the United States where you can apply for grant. The question is which grant applies to your business. There are few and very far apart. I know Google, Facebook, and some of them are Alice. I don't know if you heard of Hello Alice. They're also providing grants for business. But again, I don't think there is one website that compiles every single grant available out there for every small business. Go ahead, Roger.
Deidre, did you want to add to that at all? Because my response, I'll hear what you have to say, and then I'll come back in. Did you have a response, Deidre?
Actually, Gabriella covered the bases. It's hard to find the local stuff, but grants.gov is legit. You should start there. And,
That certainly is the case. In my experience, most of the grants that the federal government that they advertise for is typically not for small businesses. Most of them are for universities or corporations that are they're looking for something more specific in terms of what they're looking for. So I think that you definitely can look at grants.gov, but I think you'll be hard pressed to find it there, as Gabriella said. You wouldn't be able to find the private ones, so it's just a matter of having to scour the website for other private ones.
I have some questions that people have been sending to me, and I hope either Moises or Marlon could help me. One of the participants says, we are from New Braunfels, Texas, or are registered and do business with Houston Metro. Would that work? Would that be considered? I mean, I know where you guys talk about locating the low moderate income community in metro area and surrounding counties. Does that mean that the business have to be here or maybe like an office? And I'm assuming the same question will go because there are people who says, are these applying for people outside of Texas? And I'm assuming no, but I would like HBDi to answer this question.
Is Houston and surrounding areas, so the business does have to be within those parameters, and that's basically any county that's adjacent to the Harris County is eligible for the program. Now, with the Harris County fund, you have to be in the Harris County to be eligible for that particular program.
So, Gabriella, I think what would be helpful is that, as Marlon mentioned, even if the folks at HBDi can't help, perhaps that business in the area that's outside, they could refer or even maybe look at a different loan program. but I think that they certainly would be willing to assist that business in finding what might be helpful for them specifically. Is that right? Is that right, Moises?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good answer. Very good answer.
Well, you know, we are here to help and support Roger. Any help that we can provide and guide the applicant in the right direction. That's what.
Well, that's what we love. That's what we love about HBDi.
I have here, and I don't know, Mark, if you read about this. There's somebody who says we've been in business for 14 years. We've gone through some adjustments in 2019 and was in negative. Are we going to be able to get a loan?
Moises?
Yeah, so we will definitely try to look at what the business has done prior to 2019 in the past, just a history. They have been around for 14 years. There's always a story behind the number. So we are interested in knowing what happened during 2019 and what they look like in projected type of numbers. I know it's difficult now to project what's going to happen in the future, but if you had a history, you know, for 14 years, we love to learn about your history and understand what really happened during 2019. And definitely there's an opportunity there that we can evaluate.
So, Mark, do we have any more questions?
That's it. That's it for questions. And I've monitored the chat line and the Q&A, and I think we've answered everybody. Gabriela, do you have any more?
So my question is kind of like what Marlon was saying, like we're going to have a new one. All the participants eventually, does HBDi maybe has a website where people can register so they can get your newsletters about new loans or anything like that? Because I'm sure there are people outside the participant list that would like to learn a little bit more about HBDi, what
Sure.
we need to do.
We do have a website, and we're in the process of updating it with obviously the information that was shared about the Small Business Recovery Fund is not on that site yet. It was just approved yesterday. So, but you can visit us at hbdi.org, www.hbdi.org. You'll see the information on the screen for contact, both Moises and Raquel. Can answer any questions that you have about the program. You can just move through them as well. So we look forward to working with folks. And I also want to encourage all of the participants, if you just have questions, give us a call. Even if you don't think that you're eligible, don't just assume that. Give us a call and let us see if we can't help you to point you in the right direction. We're probably one of the more flexible CDFIs in the city. We usually try to find ways to make things happen. So to that extent, if there's anything that we can do to be of help, we certainly want to do that. And in closing, Gabriela, I want to thank you again for hosting this, and Roger, thank you and the NAACP for inviting us to participate today. HBDi is probably one of the best kept secrets in Houston. I say because we have access to resources that people, if they can take advantage of, they can go and prosper. We don't want to be the best kept secret. We want to be able to deploy the capital that we can. So I, again, extend a hearty thank you to everyone that participated today, and again, thanks to MBDA.
Well, and I believe before we get off, I believe there's one more question. Am I correct there, Mark? Did someone else post a question? If you could unmute yourself.
I was going to have this gentleman reach out to Moises to get an answer to his question, because I think it's very specific.
Okay.
So I'm going to give him that info. Okay.
All righty. I just wanted to make sure that that gentleman understood that we definitely saw his question. And Mr. Muhammad will make sure that reaches out to you. So if you want to make sure you get the contact information, Moises, you see that question. So we'll make sure that your question gets answered. So it seems like we're getting a little feedback. I'm not sure from whom. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Maybe not. Well, anyway. Gabriella, did you have any, so let me just, did you have any final comments that you wanted to say? I think we're just about there at the top of the hour.
No, actually, I just wanted to I wanted you to promote the NAACP Houston chapter. I know a lot of people want to learn more about it. Like you said, you have more information regarding loans. Regarding MBDA, guys, if you guys want to be a member or learn more about opportunities, feel free to send us an email, mbda@hccs.edu. You either become part of our list or we'll share with you other resources that are out there for you guys. And Marlon and Roger, I mean, I have to tell you, thank you so much. This is a lot of work you guys put in, an hour. Roger, I love how you brought that breaking news, because Marlon kind of did it on the down low, like, just going there. So thank you for that. And I love working, collaborating, and hopefully once you have more details about this grant for Harris County, we can be a resource for you. Always count us in. And for people in MBA, I know you guys, so please think of us anytime. I know we have our deck of cards is full throughout the whole year, but we're always willing to squeeze you in order to give access to capital to our minority-owned businesses. Thank you. Go ahead.
So certainly I want to thank my good partners, Houston MBDA Business Center, operated by Houston Community College. And of course, Houston Business Development, Inc., near and dear to my heart. Marlon and I have been working for decades together. And so we are here to be a resource to everybody that's on the phone and everybody that's in the community. NAACP is also a resource not just for economic development, but criminal justice, political action, education, Veterans Affairs, and we have 22 committees that are serving the Houston community to ensure racial and social injustice are talked about and policy put in place. So I see it's 11 o'clock. As Gabriella said, I will submit my contact information and will be part of the PowerPoint. And we will be back, I'm sure, pretty soon with Marlon and his crew and MBDA to talk about the Harris County program and any other late-breaking news that we may have. So having said that, I think I'm good. Marlon, you good? Gabriella, you good? Marlon, you good?